Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Yeehaw!
Okay, well, I am sitting in my shed once again. My name's Adzi. I'm sitting here for Barreled Surf Podcast. It is a Sunday afternoon, middle of winter, 2020. A bit cold and grey out there, but at least it's not raining today. And anyway, today I have the good fortune of having an old friend of mine, both in age and length of our friendship. No, he's not that old, but mate, I've got a good friend of mine called Billy Gibson from Margaret River. How you going there, Billy?
Yeah, good, Adzi. Yeah, real good.
Wicked. Thanks for coming up and having a beer with me, mate, and talk some surf stories.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So Billy's from Margaret River. He has been down there surfing for a very long time. He's been surfing for a very long time in general and has a lot of stories and a lot of experience in the world of surfing. So... mate, we'll see what sort of stories we can get out of him today. We probably don't have time to get them all out, but hopefully we get a couple out, and yeah, should be fun. So hope you guys enjoy listening to it. I know I'm going to have fun having a beer and talking to me old mate Billy. So Billy, we will start where we start with everybody. Mate, when were you born? What's your name and where do you live now?
Okay, I was born in 1955.
Yep.
I was born in Coffs Harbour in New South Wales.
Oh, yeah.
And in my younger life, I travelled up and down the coast. And with my father, he was a dredge master, and he dredged harbours and set up breakwaters on the east coast.
So your dad basically created sandbanks for everyone, did he?
Basically,
Oh,
he was
okay.
a sandbank man.
See, it's already falling into place.
It fell into place. There's no worries whatsoever.
Classic.
So we went wherever there was surf threatening the coast.
Yes,
So basically, I grew up around waves.
Yep.
And then when I was about 10 years old, my father got a job in Port Hedland, dredging the Port Hedland.
Oh,
no
right.
waves.
Okay.
But we moved to Western Australia and moved into an area in Scarborough, which was a couple of streets back from the beach, and that's where I started really getting into surfing.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so so Billy, born in 55 was it?
55, yeah.
Yep. And he's living in Margaret River now. Pretty much retired now.
Oh,
sort
pretty
of.
close.
Pretty
you know.
one foot in either camp.
Yeah.
But there you go. Well, I was going to ask. I knew you were from the East Coast originally, and I assumed that you'd driven over in your early 20s on a surf pilgrimage, but no, it was different than that. So you, the dad got a job in Port Hedland, which for people who don't know is up on the northern coast of Western Australia. It's a mining town, very hot, pretty inhospitable place. You ended up in Perth because of that, following the family when you were 10. So, mate, was he working FIFO or?
Oh no! It was they were 6 month stints.
Wow.
Basically, and you might get compassionate leave now and again for horrendous situations, you know.
Which it would have been in the 60s.
But you know, my mother drove across Australia. She got to South Australia and then she freaked out. She had 4 kids in the car.
Wow.
And she freaked out, and Dad came and met her in Adelaide, and they drove the Nullarbor before it was bitumised, obviously.
Yeah, gravel track.
In an old EJ Hydromatic Holden. So
the old
beautiful.
Yeah, unreal. Yeah, I would freak out too if I had to drive the Nullarbor plain as a gravel track with 4 kids in the car. I would definitely freak out. So very understandable. And mate, so then you landed in Scarborough.
Yeah, landed in Scarborough, which was in the hub, right in the hub, 3 streets back from the beach and Housing Commission House.
Yep.
Which is now Ritz.
Yeah,
know,
that's
you
right.
go there now and it's like 3 stories high. But yeah, we used to play in the sandhills and walk up to the top of the sandhill and check the surf at Ventnor Beach,
Yeah, right.
which was my local sort of surf break, Ventnor.
Yep.
Um,
So for those that don't know, Scarborough is a suburb in Perth, Western Australia. It's a beachside suburb that's well sought after now, and yeah, as Billy said, it's a very expensive area now. But back then, Perth was a small place, and it was just another suburb, and you had the good fortune of being right on the beach. So that's where it all began. So tell me how it began, the first surf.
yeah, well, I mean, I was surfing when I came to West Australia. I tried different craft, but when I got to Western Australia, the cool light reigned.
Reigned supreme?
Yeah, reigned supreme. Every kid within Kiwi could afford a $5 friggin' Ampol cool light,
Ampol.
Yeah, I think that Ampol made them as well.
What, Ampol, the petrol station.
Petrol station,
Okay, so
yeah.
Your first board was a cool light, which was pretty common.
Yeah.
But, so I didn't know that they were made by the petrol station company.
Yeah, well, the
Ampol.
petrol station company had their logo on some of the cool lights. They were
Okay.
flat as, no rocker in them. Had kind of a twin keel thing happening through the tail area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we all. It was the time when mouths were dying.
Yep.
And there was all sorts of surfboard innovation out there.
Yep.
But the kids, what we had weren't boogie boards. They were cool lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we learnt to ride surf on, and we progressed because there were so many surfing companies sort of set up around Scarborough. You know, Scarborough was the hub. You know.
The hub of surfing in Western
Yeah,
Australia, which was
yeah.
all pretty new and exciting at the time, I guess.
Yes, so they went to the industrial area in Osmond Park, and there was, Blackswells were there, and there's Hawke Brothers. Yeah, the old Hawke Brothers as well.
Yep.
They made everything. They made friggin' fiberglass tanks. They made bloody, anything fiberglass. They made it.
Yep.
The last thing they really knew anything about was making surfboards.
They just whacked a few out anyway.
They whacked a few out anyhow. And they had the smart nous to employ a few young people that were coming through at the time that did know something about surfboards. Murray Smith was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And Murray shaped a lot of these Hawke surfboards in those early days,
Is that right?
Yeah, so, and they were always credited to Peter Wright, but
Right.
Peter Hawke, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
But it wasn't, it'd have a Peter Hawke sticker on it, but it was one of Murray's.
Oh, right. Well,
Yeah.
we've actually got a Hawke surfboard, a bubble machine next to us on the ground here. It's, strange looking old single fin with a cool spray that I actually own and Billy fixed up for me. And he was just telling me earlier how the Hawke company wouldn't let the shapers put their name on it. They sort of claimed them for themselves. So I guess that's one example of that.
Yeah, in the early days, they were very protective of their Hawke logo, and a lot of board manufacturers were exactly the same. Probably early 70s. That all changed. We started to credit the shaper.
Yeah, right.
The shaper became more a sought after commodity in the surfing world. It wasn't just a
label.
A label.
Yep.
There was lots of labels that were sought after in the area.
Yep.
But the customer was looking for the shaper.
Yeah, right.
He's starting to look for the shaper. Yeah.
So can you remember your first proper board after the cool light?
After the cool light, well, I cut down a hunker. I cut down a Hawke.
Oh, did you?
I cut down
this
a Hawke.
one, was it?
A Peter Hawke. No, I took down to a Peter Hawke, and I cut it down to about 5'10". It was horrible.
Was it? And reglassed it yourself?
Reglassed it myself.
How old were you then, you reckon?
Oh, I was about 14, 15. My dad gave me a hand, and he knew nothing about fiberglass except that.
Sweet.
Except he did know a bit about boats, so he was like. He was. He could do anything, but he was not the best at everything.
A little bit of everything.
But not the best at everything.
Right, the jack of all trades.
That's right. So she came out pretty odd.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. But
Yeah.
it was a start. And, mate, do you reckon the waves were better in Scarborough back in the day? Has there been any...
Oh,
all this-
definitely.
what was it, all the sand dunes and stuff like that with all the car parks and buildings affected things? Or why do you...
That's one of the things that's influenced Scarborough itself. But if you look, probably historically, they put the bridge over to Garden Island early in the piece to put the naval base over there.
Yep, the naval base on Garden Island.
On
Yep.
Garden Island, and it's sort of sealed up that sound. And
Right.
I think that personally, I'm not a scientist, so I don't really know, but
Yep.
I think that it's kind of stopped the flow through that lagoon, and it is kind of a big lagoon if you look at Perth.
Perth Metro beaches.
Metro, you get Garden Island, you get
Rottnest Island.
Karnak,
Karnak, yep.
Karnak, and then Rottnest Island, and then it goes up towards Cervantes and the Mullaloo and that, and
Yep.
it's all outside reef.
Yeah.
There's a few holes in that reef.
Yep.
And obviously that's how the swell gets into Scarborough, because there's one big hole.
Yeah.
But yeah, it stopped the flow through there. So if you look from City Beach through to Triggs Beach these days,
Yep.
it's a straight line.
Yep.
And if you look historically 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, sorry.
Yeah, come on, buddy.
Sorry.
I was there
If you
20
look
years ago, I looked the same.
50 years ago, and if you look from City Beach to Triggs,
North to
it
Triggs.
was a hook. It was a big hook.
Yeah, right.
And now you look at it and it's straight.
Yeah, right.
So there's a lot of sand. But you know, whether you get bank on straight beach, and you know, I mean, when I grew up, we had a drainage system that just went straight into the ocean at City Beach there.
Yep.
And right off that little drain, there was a bank. You
Yeah.
know, and I know those things are not right
Frowned
anymore,
upon, yeah.
frowned upon anymore, but it did form a really good bank, and it was like, okay, from there on down,
Yeah.
we got banks, you know.
Yeah,
So
right. Classic. So, mate, what are some of your early memories there surfing around those years in your early teenage years? Who were you surfing with, and who were you looking up to, and things like that?
The early Scarborough years, there was a few really hot little surfers around, and I suppose Steve Fordham's passed away now, but he was one of the best. Russell Caddo surfed really, really well, although he still got a crouch that I don't like.
You don't like his style?
Don't like his style. Never
Fair
liked
enough.
his style.
But he was,
man, he's productive, so I can't fault it really.
Fair enough.
After
That's,
all these years, all
father
these
of
years,
Caden and
James
Caddo,
that's
who
right.
obviously went on to have a pretty big career in the early 2000s.
That's
James
right.
Caddo, Cats, as he was known. But
They were two of the early guys, I suppose, around Scarborough area, and few of the older guys. I think I was more influenced by some of the Cot guys.
Yep.
And they were a little bit older than me, and that's where I came into connection with Georgie Simpson and Phil Taylor, and there's a pile of really hot grommets that grew up around Cottesloe.
Yep.
They had more perfection in waves. They didn't probably get as many waves as what we got at Scarborough, but they isolated as a cracker of a wave, and so's the little cove in the corner there.
Yep.
They're left in the corner. They're good little waves, you know.
Yeah, had a bit more form.
They form. They always form, you know. So
allowed them to develop a bit more style. You
I
reckon?
think so. So, you know, and Kansi was growing up in that area as well. So
Ian
there's
Cairns.
a lot of those guys came into notice around my late teens. I started to look further afield, and a lot of the Cot guys were getting really good, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, mate, Scarborough Beach back in the day was pretty infamous for the, what was it, the Snake Pit, the pub down there, and the car park. And you got any cool stories you can
friggin' hell.
give us? Jot the memory there. It was, what was it, the Bodgies and...
Oh, the Bodgies and the Widgies.
Bodgies and the Widgies. So what, were the Bodgies like the Bogans? Or what
they're
were
a little bit before my time, but I mean, it was still a wild place.
Yep.
You know, I can remember I was about 14 or something, and we used to hang out at this place, Minnesota Fats, which was down the south end of Scarborough.
Was it a pub? Was it?
No, it was a
Milkshake
pool
bar?
pool hall.
Oh, pool hall.
A pool hall.
Classic.
And later to become pennies, you know.
Pinballs.
Yeah, pennies and pool hall, basically.
Okay. Did they
and
sell-
they killed it. They killed it.
Sure did they serve alcohol back then?
No. But it was just, they just put some cool dude out the front and just attracts people, you know. And penny machines and pool hall was just a recipe for a 14-year-old to go ape shit up the side alley, you know. So I got shit faced one night on, I don't know, green ginger wine or something friggin' horrible, and the cops came by, and I was rotten, and I was with another mate.
How old were you roughly?
Oh, I was 15. I reckon I was 15.
That's the way.
And anyway, we took off, and the cops were in hot pursuit, you know. So, and
for no reason they were chasing you.
Well, I don't know. Other than us being shit faced and 14 years old, I don't think anything else. You know, it seemed reasonable to me. But anyway, we belted across the road and jumped onto the roof of the Scarborough Surf Lifesaving Club.
Yep.
And skittled across the roof, and they're still chasing us, and we're going, oh, what the fuck, you know, we got to go now. Anyway, I've sort of hung off the gutter and dropped, and my mate's done a roll onto the beach. He's tried to go 2 rows of friggin' railing and roll onto the beach, and I've hung off the gutter and jumped over.
Yeah.
I've made the water line before he has.
Yeah.
The cops have grabbed him.
Right.
And I've jumped in the water.
In your clothes?
In my clothes. And I walked, and the cops are running up and down Brighton Beach just with the spotlight on.
Yeah.
And I'm just wading my way all the way up to Fentanyl Beach, and
back home.
Eventually got home. Wet as fuck, you know, but Jesus Christ, what a night out, hey?
That's classic. That's a hell story. Just it's funny when you're like young and drunk, and the cops
I
see
know.
you just run. I remember doing that a couple of times too, and it's like I actually wasn't doing anything wrong apart from being drunk, but you freak out, you run. They think, oh, these guys are up to no good. We better chase them, and that scenario plays out. That's a pretty textbook one from I think Australian youth that carried through a few generations. That's a goodie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more from around that area that are a lot more ribald than that. You know, I mean, the Scarborough pub and the White Sands were just seething beds of
youth and alcohol,
and excitement.
And passion.
Pretty wild places, really.
Yeah. No, they sounded like it. I mean, I grew up there in the late 90s. I was hitting the pubs there, and they still had a bit of action going on there. I can tell you, Billy, I got involved more than once or twice. But, mate, so around that era, what? When did you first start coming down south to the southwest of WA? Was it following those cock guys that you were talking about earlier?
I kind of... well, my mum and dad brought me down to Australian Titles here in about 69, I think it was.
Oh, right.
69 or 70. And I saw Yelling Up, and I saw some top surfers. You know, Midget was over, and
Midget Farrelly,
and Nat was over.
Nat Young.
Yep, there was a pile of surfers around, and they surfed Scarborough as well. So I saw them in both locations, and Yelling Up impressed me from day one. It just is a place you want to return to. So
yeah. I concur.
Yeah, so it took me. I grew up in Perth, and I did my apprenticeship, and I surfed around Perth. But at any chance, I got in the car and drove down south. And driving down south was an adventure in its own right. You know, we had just so much fun in the drive down and back that it was crazy. and then when you got here, you just got these bliss waves, you know.
Yep.
And so it just made you want to experiment with new equipment. It just made you want to surf, you know, more and more. You just wanted to find the next buzz, you know, and it was.
So tell us about the drive back then. You're probably talking late 60s or something, were you?
Yeah. Early
70s.
Early 70s when I started driving. So I was probably around about 1972, 73.
Yep. Was it gravel track all the way down from Perth or Mandurah or something like that? I
used to be able to drive. You drive to Bunbury. Yep. And get lost in Bunbury.
Okay.
Because that was crazy. That was just the stupidest town ever known to man.
Yes.
As far as the roads go.
Yep.
And so you get lost in Bunbury, you come out the other side of Bunbury, and then you'd be in a tunnel from there all the way down to Dunsborough, basically. All the way to Yellingup, you know. Well, Pepe's over both sides.
So a tree tunnel.
Yeah, tree tunnel.
Yeah, cool.
And, you know, the Peppies died the big carries or Chewits, you know. It was an adventure.
And was that mostly gravel from Bunbury?
Yeah, mostly gravel. Yeah, just bits of gravel, bits of road, you know.
And how long did it take you roughly back then?
It'd be a 5-hour trip 5 usually.
Hours. It's now.
It depends on how much mischief you got up to on the way down there.
I'm sure there was plenty. It's about a 2 hours and 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
With the new roads and the good cars and all that jazz. But mate, is there any memorable down south trips just on the road side of things, on the driving side of things, that stick out at all? I know you guys. You know, there was no RBTs back then. There was plenty of late night runs and drinking and driving and stuff like that, I'm assuming, which is heavily frowned upon now. But I guess there was a lot less traffic back then, so it probably wasn't quite as dangerous.
Well, I don't know. It was pretty dangerous at times.
Not to me.
I can remember some of the food fights that went on between cars. We used to... if you're coming down south for the weekend, it used to cost you about $4 basically in juice and food.
Wow.
So to save money, you'd get a few cans of baked beans, and rice cream was big on the sweets side. So anyway, we'd get a few cans of these, and we'd be driving down, and all of a sudden somebody'd open a can of rice cream and have a spoon with them, and the next minute somebody be passing you in a V-dub and be flicking rice cream onto their windscreen. And it got to the stage where people were climbing out onto the roof with a can of ice cream or baked beans and emptying it onto the next car that was driving past. So we were just, we had some food fights from hell, you know.
And were they just any old car or sort of other surfers that were sort of driving?
No, we usually drove down in convoy. There was usually a few of us, and there was usually somebody that had a better car than everybody else that you wanted to just put shit on.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so we'd empty rice cream and bloody baked beans all over their windscreen.
Just what you want, were you? In the middle of the night, driving down a gravel highway, probably at 100 k's an hour with a few tinnies under your belt, bit of baked beans on your windscreen. Sounds safe.
I got pulled up by the cops in friggin' Bustleton on the way out of town, and I'd had baked beans all over the front of my light blue Beetle, and I just used the wipers to wipe them off, so they were just still all sitting over the front of the car. And the copper's pulled me up, and he's going, "Oh my God, where have you been?" And he's wound up putting a yellow sticker on the car. And
yellow sticker for baked beans.
Well, there was a few other things that might have been wrong with the car.
I'm sure there was. Baked beans were the precursor.
Baked beans were the precursor. That led him in,
Yeah, right. Classic. So, mate, Yellingup Main Break was sort of the hot spot back then, wasn't it? It was sort of the first wave that got surfed in the area. And I guess when you're coming from Perth, which is predominantly small beach breaks, you get to Yellingup and you see that big, long left-hander peeling off. Mate, were you sort of surfing, was that the go-to spot most of the time? Just head for Yells and work it out from there and camp at Yells? Or what did you do in those first few times?
I was camping at Yells. We'd camp under the clubhouse out the back.
Yep.
There's a few guys that used to rule the roost there, Gramo and a few of those, George, and he was out of there, but they'd all sort of look after the grommets, and I was a grommet, so if I could find a spot in the clubhouse, that'd be great. If I could find a place under the clubhouse, that would be great.
Yep.
And if I couldn't, it was the cement dunnies out the front.
Right. Where was the clubhouse? What clubhouse was it?
It was like a shed out the back of Surfside.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
The Surfside.
Surfside,
Yep.
Surfside had it was a sort of a kiosk
Kiosk / restaurant. style.
Restaurant. Became a restaurant
Yep.
in later years, In
Yep.
the 70s, it was a restaurant. It was a really good restaurant. It just evolved, I suppose. But in the early days, there was a bit of a like a crash spot out the back of there, and we'd all, if you could steal a bunk, that'd be great. But if you couldn't, you'd camp around there.
Right.
And
you just sleep in there for free, or how did
yeah,
it work?
yeah.
Who owned it?
Not exactly sure. Not exactly sure.
Building with some beds
Just a
in it.
building, and
That's pretty cool.
like I say, most of the time I wound up underneath.
Yeah, right.
Like in the stump area.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right.
And it was dry, so
that's it. And that's right on the beach in Yelling Up for the people that don't know. And obviously there was not many people in the town of Yelling Up back then, so you could sort of just rock up and crash out anywhere without too much problem, I would imagine.
There's a
And did you were you surfing the left mostly, or were you going the right as well?
I can always remember the right. I can always remember the right, and the right attracts me no end.
Yep.
I know with the mal riding,
started on the left.
it started on the left.
Yep.
But as far as I can ever remember, I always wanted to ride the right.
Yeah, cool.
And I still tell people it's a right-hander.
Yeah, that's
don't
right.
fuck around. It's a right-hander. Just don't go there.
Except in summer, I like getting the mal out. And going left just to
maybe a northerly direction or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
So
that's it. So, mate, tell us about some of the other. In those early years, you were probably setting up base in Yelling Up mostly.
Yeah. I was really lucky. I fell in with, when I first moved down here, I got a job in Capel as a fitter, and I was just out of my time.
Yep.
And there was a whole pile of surfer crew that got jobs there at the same time. John Malloy, Dave Hattrick, Glenn Lance, the Contoulis brothers, so many of Ronnie Ratchet. They all had sort of mechanical trade type backgrounds in those days, and they wound up at the mine. Anyway,
Capel Mine, which is what?
Capel Mine.
About an hour out of Yelling Up?
About an hour from Yelling Up.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a flat in Bustleton, and John Malloy and Dave Hattrick moved in with me because I was only 20 k's from the mine, and they were living down at Wipeout Valley. And I thought, well, they had a cottage out the back of Wipeout Valley, and what happened was, after the mine closed down, I was looking for a place to get out of the flat, and they said, the cottage is at Wipeout Valley. So I moved into Wipeout Valley, right behind Dave Hattrick and John Malloy. John Malloy went on to set up pipeline leg ropes and then Creatures of Leisure.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And Dave Hattrick was in partnership with Ian Cairns, and he was doing surf expos in the early 70s in Perth at the concert hall.
Okay.
So these guys were movers and shakers. It's the movers and shakers house. It was
right.
Everybody was rocking up there. It was party. It was the on scene,
Yeah, right. And Wide Up House is obviously on the road that you take down to
Engine Up.
Engine Up Beach, which is a very famous surf beach here. It's got about 4 or 5 different waves in a very small bay. Left-hand point break, right-hand slab, right-hand performance wave, a couple of beachies. So I'm guessing you were well and truly all over that at the time.
Oh, look, that was one of the best years of my life. I think 74 or 75. I didn't work a great deal. I did about 3 or 4 months work and then had enough money. And then I did get another job in Bustleton, but I surfed so much. My wife, she wasn't my wife at that time. She got a job at Cave's house.
Yep, behind the bar.
Yeah, behind. Oh no, kitchen staff.
Oh yeah, kitchen.
Split shift.
Yep.
So I'd drop her off in the morning and then pick her up and halfway through the morning, and then drop her off at 2:00 and then pick her up later on.
No doubt you were just surfing every time in between.
I was crazy. I used to drive her to work at about 7:00,
Yep.
and on the way home, we'd drop in at it was at the old coach house on just before Smith's Creek there. There's an old coach house there, which is now a winery, and it had a milking shed out the back, and Tommy Hoy was in there shaping boards for a while.
Yep.
But about 74, when I moved in, Dapper moved into there, and Dave Playstead. Anyway, Dapper was making sunrise surfboards in there at the time, and I'd drop by. I'd sit on the veranda with Dapper and have a coffee and talk about the world.
Yeah.
And then
rolling a few fat ones.
Rolling a few fat ones for sure.
Or Chillums back in those days, weren't they?
Well, they were actually. He
Yeah.
was my introduction to that instrument.
Was he? Oh, excellent. I've heard you can play it well.
And yeah. Anyway, we'd wind up out at the car park, and we had so many days there, just absolute unbelievable,
Yep.
And some of the best surfs I've ever had were with Dapper and a couple of other people,
Engine Up Car Park.
Engine Up Car Park.
Yep.
Cracking Engine Up Car Park by ourselves,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, unreal. So back to the Wind Up cottages, Billy. You said it was full of, and I quote, movers and shakers at the time. Can you give me a quick insight into some of the more colourful characters or any particularly memorable events or parties that may or may not have gone down out there?
Right. Dave Hattrick was living in the house. Helen Spotty, we always know her as Spotty. So she was the girlfriend, Dave's girlfriend. And they decided that they'd get married. And it wasn't, let's say, marriage wasn't one of those things that was really first in line for people to do. So they decided to have a sort of loose celebration of a union.
And they lived with you out at the
cottages?
Yeah.
They were in the main house. There was their house, Spotty ruled the kitchen.
Yeah.
She was like, she could cook anything, and she just ruled the kitchen. There was a monstrous great kitchen with glass all the way around it.
And you guys were like young in the 70s.
Oh, yeah, I was.
Hippies, you weren't really thinking marriage.
No. Yeah. Well, I was, because I wanted my missus to come down and live with me. So,
yep.
And her parents weren't keen on it. So, I did wind up getting married, but they had a loose celebration. Dave and Spotty had a loose celebration, and like it just involved everyone. People came from everywhere,
Yeah.
Because when there was a party on in those days, you would go 30 k's to a party.
Yeah, so there wasn't many parties.
No, it wasn't a great deal. So when there was a celebration on, it was a celebration. On. Anyway, people had heard that Spotty and Dave were getting married. And they chose a celebrant, and the celebrant was a guy. He's a farmer dude from Bustleton, Bob Stafford.
Right.
And he was a bit of an odd character, but he was so colourful. He always wore Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
And he'd been to Texas, so he had a Texan 10-gallon hat for the 5-gallon head.
The big cowboy Texan
the
hat.
cowboy Texan hat.
Yeah, so Hawaiian shirt, Texan hat.
Yeah, mate. And so he's done himself. And usually you'd see him in farmer's clothes, so you weren't sort of expecting it. You knew he was a bit eccentric, but you didn't really grasp it until that night.
Yeah.
And then, so he's rocked up, 10-gallon black Stetson hat, and he's got the most colourful Hawaiian shirt you've ever seen in your whole life.
Yeah.
And then he's got this freaking goanna. And the goanna's
Goanna?
a goanna.
What sort of goanna?
He's got a fucking goanna.
What, like a big one or a bobtail?
Yeah, no, one of those
Like a bunga.
racehorse, racehorse, you know.
So a big one.
Yeah. And I don't know where he got it from. I think he's rescued it from somewhere because he was an animal rescuer, you know. But he's got this goanna in tow on a lead with friggin' collar around its neck, and it's got all little diamantes fucking stuck in the collar. And anyway,
So diamond-studded necklace on a goanna. And he's the celebrant.
Yeah, he's the celebrant. So I can tell you, it was a colourful night, you know.
Yeah,
there was a lot of wild people there, and just one of the many parties that were held at that house. You know, it was a party house. It was one of those. It was probably the best house that anybody had in the district. You know,
right.
we were all used to old groupies that were falling down everywhere. You know, and they had the U-Butte one in White Valley, and it still is a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Oh, mate, that sounds like a quality era out there.
Quality era then.
Good stuff. Cool. And what about Margaret River, mate? When did you first start venturing that further bit south? Was it straight off the bat, or did you sort of?
I was around here I was around Yelling Up for about a year, and then I'd put an offer in a block down here, and then
whereabouts?
On 2 blocks actually. I got beaten to the punch on the one up from in the valley there, Rob Malcolm's.
In which valley is that? Smiths Valley?
Smiths Valley. It was just a second old coach house in there.
Yep.
It's an old place, limestone place. I think that went for $7,500.
Is that where my mate Mono lives?
I think so. Yeah.
It is. He's good friend of mine. Yeah,
it's
the old
beautiful
limestone.
The old limestone place.
Yeah. I go
so that was
quite a bit.
That went up for about $7,500.
Yep.
And then there was a block down in Yelling Up Beach for $3,000. And
Yelling Up Beach for $3,000.
And
what was your yearly wage roughly back then?
Oh shit. About $5,000.
About $5,000.
Yeah, even on you know, I mean, I was earning $100 a week as a fitter.
Yep,
and that was good money.
That was good money. So it was sort of like 3/4 of a yearly income. You could have got a block on the hill at Yelling Up that's now worth about $2.5 million.
But I wound up waiting about a year and a half, and there was a boom in that year and a half.
Yeah, right. Well, it went up to $3,500, did it?
Well, yeah, no, it did. It went up to about 15 or 14 or something like that.
Wow, that is pretty.
Oh, yeah, it was big boom. Anyway, I wound up buying in Margaret River, and I bought a little house in Townview Terrace in Margaret River, and it was we stayed there a few years, and I got on the end of another boom. And I think I bought it for 13, and I sold it for about 32 or something like that.
Where was that? In the town of Margaret River?
Yeah, that was in the town of Margaret River, and that got me to the block that I'm in now, which is in the town of Margaret River.
Yep.
A couple of streets back from the main street.
Yeah. So what year did you buy that one?
1979.
79.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I built myself a rock house.
Yep.
And did what every other hippie in the place was doing, which was build a rock house.
Yep.
Scav what you could.
Yep. Jarrah timbers everywhere.
Jarrah timber.
Yep.
Whatever you could mill, whatever you could scav, whatever you could.
Did you do a lot of the building yourself?
Yeah.
Seemed to be the go back then.
Oh, yeah.
Get your mates.
I thought, get the walls up, and it was freaking hell. It took me forever to do the walls. And then, and now, 40 years in, I've just fixed up the veranda, and I can sort of confidently say that I feel like it's finished.
just a casual 40-year build.
It's a 40-year job, like it's taken time. There's been a little bit of surf in between.
Oh, just a couple of surfs to slow you down in between. Yeah, right, classic. So, mates, what about, when did you start sort of venturing around the Margaret River surf breaks? I mean, obviously, it started in Yowls and sounds like it went to Injin. When did you start going south? And, I mean, Margaret River main break was on the cards by then, wasn't it? And there was a few competitions that went down and stuff. Is that what drew you in there? Or
Yeah, I think there was a few people around too at the time. I was riding energy surfboards, which is Ken McKenzie, and Ken had moved into the area a little bit later than I did, and they originally moved into Dapper's spot on Yelling Up, just over Smith's there, into the milking shed, and they were making a few boards there. And they decided to move down to Margaret River, and Ken and Hamish, and they bought in right on the river, down beautiful spot, and Ken and Hamish and a few of those guys all started to move to Margaret River. I was probably the first, but within a year there was about 4 or 5 other Perth people that were moving into Margaret River.
Yep.
It already had a little bit of a population because it had guys like Rob Keneally and Mark Moore down there.
Yep.
And they were really underground. They were making boards. There was outpost surfboards were happening in Forest Grove,
Yeah, just getting made in the bush.
Yeah,
made in the bush. No internet and Instagram and Facebook
so there was
no
always
advertising.
No advertising. So there was
just
always
quality single fins in the deep depths of the Margaret River bush.
It was.
Just surfing big solid waves to themselves, I guess.
Yeah, it was depths. And they really did charge, a lot of those guys. They, and you look at the board design from that era.
Yep.
And you look at some of the, especially Tom Hoy's boards. There's just absolutely beautiful lines. The forward point might be a long way forward, but really, just it will draw a line. It just, whatever board you've seen of that era, it just does want to lend yourself to a long line. Yep. I know Margaret's and those places don't have long lines.
No, not.
But
yeah,
that's what they were looking for, Yep.
And they're looking for that big bottom turn and that big high line, weren't they?
Yeah, they were looking for that big.
Even though the waves over here aren't as long as the point breaks of east and stuff like that, they were still looking for those big, long, powerful lines, weren't they?
Yeah, and there were some beautiful boards just being made all around that area at the time. So
unreal. So you used to surf Margaret River main break, obviously, quite a lot once you bought the house down there and stuff.
Yeah, main break was main
bread and butter.
Bread butter.
Yeah.
It's grown and it's got crowded these days. I don't surf it a great deal now. I have my rules. If there's 15 guys out there or more, then I don't go surfing. And mainly because it's not that the 15 guys out there. Well, it might be that the 15 guys out there are just idiots, So it's just freaking hard work.
Yep.
Yelling Up's a lot easier place to surf with a crowd than Margaret's main break.
Why is that?
It's just a more intense peak.
Yeah, it's more focused in that.
It's more focused, and perhaps it's the crew. It's a very localised crew. So I've tended to spray a little bit from Margaret's in later years, and look, there's so many waves on this coast. Freaking hell, there's just wave upon wave. So and we can still get our wave to ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. No, we still can.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Well, what about, I got a few little notes down here that I thought I might bring up. Tell us about West Coast Surf Safaris. What was that all about?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know I had that one up my sleeve, did you, Billy? Hey?
Yeah.
What?
That was my mate, Dean Forsyth. He still runs a recovery service for cars up in Bustleton. He's a top bloke.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, he had a safari business, and we were. Dean was one of the first. Well, he was the first to take surf trips up to the Bluff and Nalu, and further afield. We did
surf trips, as in taking other people.
Yeah,
for
paying
for money.
passengers.
Yeah, paying customers, and we'll
taking
take
them
you
on
up
a
there.
surf safari.
Okay,
we'll
cool.
give you 7 days of surf. I'll, charge you for it, and
Yeah.
away you go.
What year was that roughly?
Mid 80s.
Oh, yeah?
Mid 80s. We started doing that, and anyway, Dean attracted a few really different crew. He had Rip Curl, Quicksilver. I think Billabong came along for one trip with him. He had the Surfing Medicos Association that came away for a trip.
Yep. Was that a bunch of doctors?
Bunch of doctors.
Yep.
Dr. Jeff, who was he was a big tracks. He was the tracks man.
Contributor.
Yep. Yeah, tracks contributor for many years. I don't know where he is these days, but
so I got tipped off that there was a bit of a story involving that certain trip with the doctors.
Oh, fuck.
Tell me about that one. Your son Gibbo said, ask him about the Surfing Doctors Safari.
Oh, shit.
So what happened there?
I got to tell you this first.
Okay.
I had 2 of the best tubes of my life that day.
Right.
I had one friggin' barrel at Nalu that was all time.
Yep.
And two bubbles through,
Double
It was
banger.
just a double banger. And then I
Sweet.
got to the Nalu got to the Bluff that afternoon. We were all camped. There was about 40 of us, I think. And we were all camped at Nalu.
40 of you?
Oh, yeah.
What, on the surf safari?
Yeah, on the surf safari. There was doctors from all around the world.
Wow, that's a big safari.
Journalists from GQ in England.
Wow.
Journalists, a few journalists anyway.
So it's 40 of you. How many surfers?
There was 2 carloads went up. Dean had an extended troop carrier, which took 14 people.
One of those ones where you sit sideways in the back all the way up to Nalu. That sounds comfortable.
It just kept on going and
Oh,
going and
man.
going.
Jeez.
Anyway, it was a good trip. But anyhow, what happened was that all the boys that afternoon went out the Bluff. I scored my second friggin' tube that was just scorcher, nearly ripped my arm off, but just absolute scorcher.
Sick.
Came in, was just totally in bliss, came up to the car and the extended troop carrier was sitting there.
Yep.
Had a shower unit on the back of the car.
Okay.
And had to start the car to do it.
To pump the water or something?
To pump the water. So
Yep.
one of the punters had gone up, started the car.
Yep. So you could have a nice shower.
Hot showers going.
Beautiful.
He's standing under the hot shower.
Yeah.
I'm coming up to the car.
Yeah.
The car started to friggin' move forward. So
Right.
I've just decided, okay, I'll run around this car. So I've run right around the car from the other side, put one foot in the door of the car,
Yeah.
and put my foot on the brake.
Right.
And at the same time, the front wheels jackknifed over the front cliff at the Bluff, right in the corner there.
Wow.
The car's done.
Over like a 5 metre cliff sort of thing?
Yeah, 5 metre cliff. The car's jackknifed on the door and rolled over and landed on all fours on the beach below.
Wow.
And as I'd run down the side of the car, I'd get a friggin' rope from the boards.
The strap off the roof?
Strap off the roof. And it wrapped around my guts as I'd stuck my foot in the door.
No way.
And so I've just sort of fallen into this tiny little crevasse in the rock.
So as the car's rolled off the cliff, the ropes grabbed you around the stomach and pulled you down with it.
Pulled me down.
Holy crap.
Pulled me out of the friggin' little hole that I was safe in.
Yeah.
And just went bang, and I landed parallel to the car.
Holy
so
crap.
The car was on all fours, and I was lying on my back, and I had like 40 doctors on my case.
Because that's pretty handy, because you were taking a bunch of doctors there. And what happened here? So obviously, it was lucky the car didn't land on you, man.
Well, yeah, it was really lucky. At first, they thought I'd broken every bone in my body, but they loaded me into the car, into Lindsay Thompson's car,
right?
RIP,
Yeah.
But yeah, loaded me into Lindsay Thompson's car, and they had a surgeon from the North Shore Hospital in Sydney.
Yep.
They had an anaesthetist.
Yeah. Did he have his drugs on him?
No,
Oh,
the bastard wouldn't give me any drugs.
What? And he had some with him?
Yeah, no, they wouldn't give me any
Why?
drugs.
Because they've seen what you've been doing the previous couple of days and
I
thought,
tell
no,
you
this guy
what,
doesn't need any.
They were going. They were planning to take over the frigging Carnarvon Hospital to operate on me.
Really?
Yeah, because they thought I'd busted my femur and my hip.
Right.
So they were all ready to frigging operate on me.
No way.
And the other person in the car, and God knows why, was a psychologist.
What is he
I think
doing
it was.
there?
I could have been Jim Bradley.
Did he help you mentally through that 2-hour drive back to town on the bumpy gravel road?
Like, fuck, just give me something, But
Yeah,
they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it.
They didn't give you anything. That's crazy.
Anyway, I got into hospital. They x-rayed the shit out of me.
Yeah.
They disappeared because I was okay. I was just bruised, apparently. And
so that's all you got, bruising?
well, it took me 6 months to come good.
6 months?
Yeah. I had all knots in my guts and my bum and...
Right.
Yeah, I didn't shit for 3 weeks. It was bad. Mate. It was a bad situation.
Oh, that sounds crazy.
I tried to go back up there, like a week out. I got out after about 3 days out of hospital.
Carnarvon Hospital in the mid-'80s
mate.
would have been a stellar establishment,
it
I
was
would imagine.
A stellar establishment. I can tell you, I was ready to freaking break my way out of there.
Oh, Christ.
So, yeah. And
what did you do? Did you drive back?
well,
down?
I drove back up there, and then
You went back up there.
I went back up there, and I tried to because I was employed, frigging cooking and bottle washing, basically.
No workers'
driving
comp?
the car.
No workers' comp then, I'm tipping.
No, but Dean looked after me. He was good.
Yeah.
So and all up, it was a good exchange. I wound up in Royal Perth about a month later after I'd been holidaying.
Really?
Trying to get me freaking sphincter into place.
So you waited a month. Thought, I'll just go back to the surf for a
mate,
month.
it was hard work, but I got through it.
You didn't surf again that trip?
I tried.
Did you?
I did try.
What happened?
And oh man, I had a football on my leg. I had a football on my ass. I had a football on my guts.
Yeah.
And I had all these scratches from arsehole to breakfast. Every time I hit the water, it stung. And then, I just couldn't stand up. Couldn't stand up. It was just, it was terrible. So,
crazy.
Yeah.
And so, was that the end of West Coast Surf Safaris? Or
No. Dean went on for a couple of years after that.
Yep.
We did a couple of really good trips. We did one to the Murons off...
Muron Islands?
Yeah, off Exmouth. And that was a funny trip too.
Was it? Tell me more. That's what
we
we're here for.
We got stuck out there.
Jeez,
Mick McAuliffe.
I don't know what the reviews would be like
Mick
on this
McAuliffe,
website.
Dave McCauley.
Yeah.
Ross Clark Jones.
No way.
What's the green? Robbie Kerr. And who was another guy? I can't remember the other guy. There was 3 East Coasters.
Yeah.
Oh, Marcus Brabant.
Right.
And anyway, and there was Mark Dan.
No, don't know.
Who's a Geraldton Aboriginal guy.
Oh, is that the
really
dad of
Ken
Dan?
Dan's
I remember
his
that
brother.
guy. Oh, okay. Brother.
Mark was the original one.
Yep.
It's so smooth.
Yeah,
Anyway, we all wound up on the Muron Islands, right?
Right. How did you get out there?
Well, we got a charter boat out there.
Yep.
Fishing boat,
Yeah, a fishing boat.
I think it was the Kings. Anyway, they dropped us out there.
Dropped you out there? What do you mean?
Dropped us on the island. We're not allowed to stay on the island, but I think somehow Dean had wangled some sort of permission to stay on the end of the island. So
so you just pitched tents and stuff?
We pitched a tent. Pitched tents. Had a big tarpaulin over this sort of A-frame piece of steel that was there.
Yep.
And anyway, 2 days in, it was good. We had great waves.
Yeah, good waves?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And then 2 days in, fronts come out of the north.
Right.
And starts pissing down.
Oh, terrible.
like pissing down.
Nowhere to hide.
Nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So
An exposed northwest coast on
we
an
got
island.
10 guys on the end of the island here,
Yeah.
and there's crazy. Dean's gone. We've got a little runabout, and it's 22 k's into Exmouth,
Yep.
and there's no way we can sort of take to anybody else. So
Yep.
Dean's gone. It's pissing down with rain. I'll do the run,
Yeah.
and I'll get the boys to come and get us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's no phones,
No
obviously.
phones,
and
no nothing.
No
so
communication. You
no
gotta drive
communication. So he's taken off in this little freaking runabout,
with a little
14 foot runabout,
little 15 horsepower or something.
22 k's into Exmouth.
Can you see the land from there?
No, you can't see it.
No.
You
So what do you
couldn't
have,
see
just
fuck
little
all at that
compass or
stage,
something?
mate. It was pissing down.
Did he have a compass or what was he doing?
Anyway, he's disappeared. So I'm out there and I'm looking after these. I'm sort of cooking.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to run out of food, you know.
No way.
Like second day in,
What? So he's been gone for 2 days.
he's
still-
got 2 days,
shit.
and I'm going. Oh shit! I hope he fucking made it.
Oh, yeah.
It's still drizzling, right?
Oh, man.
And anyway, a couple of guys are starting to lose the plot out there.
Yeah. Who was losing the plot?
That guy Brabant, he was
Oh, yeah?
he was standing there in a sleeping bag there, and somebody stood up in the tarp,
Yeah.
and the friggin' water just pissed into his sleeping bag over the edge,
Oh, mate.
and everybody's gone cracked up laughing, and he's spitting it. He's just totally spitting it.
As
And
it would be.
I'm just cooking the last of the food. I've got
Sounds like Lord of the Flies.
I've got a crate of tomatoes and about 400 onions, and I've chopped them all up, and I've got every spice that I've got known to man. I've chucked it in this pot. It's like a huge tomato soup, immense tomato soup. There was still stuff when Dean came back.
Yeah.
Most of the crew were pretty happy, but it really was
The guy with
tough
the wet
going.
guy with the wet sleeping bag wasn't so happy.
He wasn't happy at all,
That's
mate.
fair enough.
And Ross and the boys, they seemed to keep themselves quite occupied. They were,
Did they?
yeah, their little tent was lifting off the ground.
Yeah. Yes, there was a fair bit of Margaret River madness packed on board
there
that
was some
boat.
madness. That was total madness. That trip.
Wow, that sounds crazy. So let's get this straight, Billy. You're on a desolate, windswept limestone island 20 kilometres off the mainland. There's no trees or shelter apart from your tents and tarps. And it took your mate 2 days to come and pick you up. Well, why did it take him so long? What's going on?
Well, the boat was shit. You know,
What, the runabout?
The runabout was a piece of shit. We broke the steering on the way out, and so Dean was hanging off the end of the fucking thing, steering it by moving the outboard.
By holding on to the outboard.
Holding on to the outboard. So he set off in fucking blinding rain, holding on to the outboard of the motor.
22
And
Ks back
22 Ks to go.
Did he by himself?
By himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was totally friggin'
No EPIRBs or GPSs, mate.
It's just like, it's the back days.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm not sure after a day whether he's fucking made it, and everybody's going, "When's Dean coming home? When's Dean coming back?"
You guys are just marooned on this.
Yeah, we're just marooned
in a
and
storm
it's
on an
like,
island, just
fuck
with no
if
cover.
I know, mate. Just fuck if I know. Fuck off. You know, eat some food. Just
Eat your tomato soup.
Yeah, eat the tomato soup. So I'm just going. Well, I hope he's right. You know. Anyway. Sure enough, on the morning, it came. It was about 11 o'clock by the time he'd come back.
2 days
And
later.
2 days later, it's still drizzling.
Yeah.
And it's just this wild storm that came out. Anyway, he's come out with the Kings, and I'm going, what the fuck, you know? And he's going, well.
The Kings is
The Kings
big
got
fishing
stuck in.
charter.
They were in the pot shot. They were in the pub. And they weren't going fucking nowhere.
The local pub in Exmouth.
Yeah. They're all pissing it up. They've gone, 2 days of rain. We're not going fishing,
Yeah.
so we don't need to pick up these surfing dudes. They're all right on the island. They'll be fucking fine, you know.
No way.
And Dean's starting to hassle them, you know. So he's finally got them into action. And
So they're just in the pub, just
they're
getting
just
booze,
in
and
the-
they're just like,
yeah.
we don't care about
We'll
these
do it
blokes.
tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. She'll be right, you know.
That's
and
rough.
so we finally packed up, and the sun came out, and it was, by the time we got back into Exmouth, it was probably 4:30.
Yep.
So we've gone to the pot shot, we've had a feed, and we're all sitting there, and Dean's going, well, let's go for the bluff, you know.
Yeah.
We can be there tomorrow morning, you know, and everybody's keen to go surfing the next day.
Yeah, for sure.
After 2 days rain, you know. So we've decided, we'll hit the road. So about 6 o'clock after a couple of beers and, suitable head freaking machinery to get through your night, we've taken off. And anyway, about 5 or 6 k's out of town, everybody's drifting off. You know, they're all going to sleep.
Yeah, it's been a big couple of days.
And we're in convoy. Dean's up in front, and I'm behind him.
Yeah.
And like he just takes off, you know, and I just plod along. So he knows I'll be cool, you know, so I'll just plod along.
Yeah. Who'd you have in your car?
Oh fuck, I can't remember.
Yeah. A few of the boys. Anyway.
A few of the lads.
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah. So
they all start nodding off.
Yeah, everybody's nodding off.
Yeah.
So and we've got about 10, 15 k's out of Exmouth, and we hit this floodplain, and it's dark.
Yeah, right.
And I'm watching the white line. I'm just following the white line, and then I'm going, oh, this fuck of a white line. What's this mean? And then all of a sudden, we're fucking aquaplaning. I got a trailer behind me, about a half a ton of trailer behind me.
100 k's an hour.
100 k's an hour, and we're just aquaplaning across this lake. And I'm going, everybody's going, oh, what's happening? You know? And I'm going, it's all right, it's cool. Meanwhile, I'm going, where the fuck am I? What the fuck am I doing? And then all of a sudden, I come out the other side, and we just hit the white line, just bang on, and everybody's going, oh.
Everyone's awake now?
Everybody's awake now. So, that was really funny. And from then on, it was cool. There was a few floodplains, but I wasn't expecting it, and it was one of those things. So, we made the bluff the next day. Surf turtles, pretty good, pretty nice, only small, but the boys really did enjoy it.
Did a part, and that was the end of an eventful adventure, was it?
Oh
mate?
Beauty, yeah.
Wow, that sounds crazy. What a cracking story.
Yeah, I think that was a Quicksilver or a Rip Curl trip.
All right. Was there anyone like filming or taking photos? There's
a few photos there.
No footage ever popped up anywhere of that or anything?
Nah.
Just a couple of photos?
I've got a pile of photos. The guy that I was in partnership with in a surfing mag, Clive Slater, he got a pile of photos as well. Cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a cracking story. I'd like to ask what happened to West Coast Safaris. I'm tipping the reviews after a couple of those stories there weren't the best, but lucky there was no websites to review on back then. But I'm sure everyone had a bloody good time, and there was lots of good stories.
Everybody that went on one of those trips had a great time
and got good waves.
It just had its time. There was a time for it, and it finished.
Yeah.
And Dean was happy for it to finish, and you know.
So that was a good segue where you mentioned the photos for a magazine, because was it around that same time you started up West Australia's first surf magazine?
Oh, not first by any means, but yeah, we started a tracks style.
What was that? Ocean Express.
Ocean Express.
I believe it was called. Yeah. So what? Tell us a bit about that.
It was basically a West Australian response to what was happening. There wasn't too much information in tracks and magazines at the time on Western Australia. So and a few people had tried beforehand, but we came at it from a totally naive angle and said, I can write the words, and my mate, who was a photographer, Clive Slater, said I can do the photographs.
Yep.
And we went from there, and huge learning curve. We did, I think, 13 magazines over 3 years.
Oh, yeah?
Nearly sent us broke, but...
Yeah.
but, yeah, a really good experience. You know, I learnt so much.
That was mid-80s as well, was it?
Yeah, I think the last one was in 88. So, huge learning experience. I learned all about distribution and you know, publishing, and and things like that, and no computers in those days either. So
No.
all the was typed out, typeset, set in onto a piece of paper, photographed, taken to the printers,
Yeah, right.
come back from the printer, go to the distributor. You
Wow.
know, it's just
A lot
a
of work.
process. It was like, well, how much work do you want to do?
And it obviously didn't make much money out of it from the sounds of it. It nearly sent you broke.
Oh, look, it was hard, Yakka. Distribution was the hard thing, you know, because you can't do everything yourself, and you can't distribute the magazine like that Australia-wide without using newsagents and that sort of thing. So, and that's what killed us, really. That
It was pretty hard back then. There was, there was no platforms just to bang it out there. It was would have been all
90
full
days before I got paid, so
Yeah.
it was just like freaking hell.
all legwork and
Yeah,
face to face and phone calls, and it would have been pretty hard. It's
Face-to-face advertising, you know, and the surfing industry's been fantastic in Western Australia. They've always supported something that's local, you know, and so if somebody gets up and starts to do something, you know, you can count on support from down the road, you know. They'll do what they can. So we're really supportive in Western Australia, you know, the surfing industry.
Yeah.
So,
and what were you doing at that time, work-wise, to sort of keep you afloat? Obviously, that wasn't your main source of income at that time. Were you still sort of doing fitting and turning stuff, or?
I worked at home when I could, but I've worked away when I have to. So it's kind of been a life of juggling a million jobs. I don't know.
Yep.
I can't
Remember
know.
them all. Yeah.
You know.
So a lot of up north stuff in the mining industry.
Yeah. I've
and
done
stuff
mining industry stuff and a lot
Yep.
of that sort of stuff. And I could never stick at a roster. And I've always worked in a casual basis, so when it pisses me off, I just have to pull the pin, and that's it, you know.
When the surf's up, you're
surf's
gone.
up. It's happened,
Good man.
you know.
It does. That's excellent. And the magazine just sort of faded out, did it? So,
It had. I didn't want to lose too much money at the time. Interest rates were about 17%.
Yeah, right.
And I was freaking.
Yeah.
So
You're still
I was just
paying
going,
off that house in Margaret River.
cut my losses and get out of this.
Yeah, fair enough.
I still like the idea of writing a few things, and I do jot down little pieces and, you know, and give them to different people for publication.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No worries. All right, mate. Well, that's pretty good. Let's just have a quick break here.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to you in a sec. Nice
No
work,
worries.
Billy.
Easy.
Okay, and now we're back after that little intermission there. Mate, we're sitting in my shed again with Billy Gibson. We just had to get some new refreshments and make a bit of room for the said refreshments. Billy's been telling us some epic stories here, and you're listening to Barreled Surf Podcast. My name's Adzi, and I've got Billy Gibson here, as previously mentioned. Billy, let's jump into the Margaret River board riders, and I believe you were there in the early days of that. Can you tell me how that began and how you got into it and things like that?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I think we all moved down south. There's me and Ken McKenzie and Ricky Gaff, and there was a pile of guys that were surfing in the state rounds, state titles, and there was a bit of a push on at the time for people to be in clubs, you know,
right.
And so basically Margaret River guys got together and decided, we'll form a club, and around about the same sort of time.
Roughly what year was that?
78, 79, somewhere around about then. 78, I'd say.
Yep.
And around about that time, the Margaret River Tavern was being built. It used to be a BP garage, which I used to work at for a while.
Okay.
It used to be owned by John Terry, but John Terry decided to pull it down and build a tavern there.
Smart
which
move.
is still there today.
Settlers Tavern.
Settlers
It's an
Tavern.
Absolute iconic pub of the the state.
It is.
It's
So,
seen some big nights, that one.
yeah. So I watched it be built.
Yep.
And And John Terry said at the time it'd be really good to have a surf contest in this area, you know.
Right.
He says, we never see the state guys and never, So he was kind of encouraging us to start something down at Margaret's.
And was he a surfer?
No. He's John Terry goes back to the Bustles.
Right. From Bustleton.
No.
The Bustles, as in
the Bustles
the
that
Bustle
own
family.
Warcliffe House.
Okay.
Warcliffe House is one of the earliest. It burnt down during the fires recently.
Yep.
But it was one of the earliest dwellings in Margaret River.
Yep.
It's really, if you look back in history, it's got books written about it. So
yep.
It's worthy of looking up. Anyway,
okay, cool. So he was that historical vintage, but he
historical. Anyway, John
the
Terry
cut of
was
you young surfers, did he?
Yeah, John Terry was a top bloke. He was. He gave us a job in the BP garage, and I think Sid Tate was working there before as a panel beater, and somebody else was working in there as a spray painter, and then he pulled that down and built the tavern, and he was just the best publican. He was just freaking unreal. Every Friday night, bloody mint spuds. He'd bring them out and bring heaps of mint spuds out. And
mint spuds? What do you mean?
Mint spuds.
What,
he'd have
like mint-flavoured cooked potatoes?
Yeah, have potatoes.
Yeah.
And he'd have all this chopped mint on them and heaps of salt.
Yeah.
And he'd just have them all boiled up and...
Yeah.
There's freaking delicious things. I don't know why they don't serve that shit.
I've never had a mint spud. I love mint. I love spuds. Mate, so does my missus. I might tell her about this when we go in. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of his fortes at the tavern. But anyway, he was keen on sponsoring a contest.
Okay.
So basically between a few members, foundation members that got together and formed the club, and John Terry, the Margaret River Classic got run the following year.
Right, and that pretty much formed the club in a sense.
In a sense, yeah. It was the main aim for the year to run that competition at the end of the year.
Yep.
And the other thing, it was encouraging young guys from around the area to go into the state rounds.
Yep.
And there were some good surfers around, Yeah.
And the Margaret River Classic is still running today, sporadically. I think last year it didn't run, but...
Well, last year it didn't run.
You guys have invited me down there for a few years, and I've jumped on the microphone. It's a bloody good comp, and there's been some unreal surfers win it over the years. It's still a great comp. So
it's still a great comp. It will get up again.
Yep.
And, it's one of those things that has kept the surfing community together. Down there quite a bit,
I'm sure.
It's great. So, and it keeps the older guys like myself involved with younger people.
The next generation.
It's great. Yeah.
Awesome. No, it is a good thing. So that was sort of pretty pivotal in forming the early years of the club, from the sounds of it. And did you do much competitive surfing before that, or?
I'd surfed in shortboards. But I was beaten quite a bit by Ken McKenzie and Ricky Gath.
Yep.
So I was, I was in the league, but I wasn't in the league, It's just there was better people and more determined people than me. And I was enjoying my surfing.
Yep.
And I was enjoying surfing with those guys,
Yep.
But
competitive surfing's a different thing altogether. So,
and there was a few amongst them. Hamish McKenzie, who passed away early in the piece.
Did you name your son after him by any chance?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Because your son, Hamish Gibson, that's
he
how I met
away.
you. I became mates with him at school.
Yeah.
But I never knew this, but I just put two and two together right then.
Yeah.
So you named him after him, did you?
Yeah. He was a special person in my life. He was a non-competitive surfer.
Yep.
Definitely non-competitive, but competitive in the water.
Yeah.
And would drag you out into Never Never Land and
sweet
freaking hell. Jeez Christ, I can. Yeah. used to shiver when I went
get
with
cold
Hamish. Hamish, sometimes he'd drive over the hill and he'd go, he'd be going, yeah, lots of this. Nobody out, grey,
Yeah, grey,
big.
10 to 12 foot, and he's frothing.
Yeah,
and
he's
you're
frothing,
sorta,
and you're just going, yeah, maybe. And he'd be dragging you.
Wow, he must have
You
been
know.
a legend if you named your son after him. Must have been a champion of a bloke.
Yeah, I think it was an impact on us as we were young that we lost somebody so vibrant.
How did he die?
He was drowned in a mine disaster in the Northern Territory.
Oh, drowned.
Drowned, yeah. He got caught in a trying to free up a pipeline, and
Oh, right.
yeah,
Oh, bugger.
yeah. So I'm not. I still don't know the full
Details.
details, and
Yep.
I didn't really want to know. I know that it impacted the family greatly, and
Yep.
and like I say, he was a great guy to go surfing with.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to raise my glass to
Yeah.
Hamish Mackenzie.
Hamish Mackenzie.
What an old legend.
Yeah, he was a legend.
Mate, so talking about legends, how did you receive the first ever lifetime membership award for Margaret River board riders?
Oh,
How'd that come about?
Oh.
Whose cone did you pack then?
Jesus Christ. Look, I'm not really sure. As clubs go, and this is an observation from many years of being in all sorts of clubs. Clubs have their peak periods and their waning periods, and some of the peak periods are because of the people that run them are fantastic.
Yep.
And some of the waning periods are people that just at least they stick their hand up, and you got to appreciate that they stick their hand up
And have a go.
And have a go.
Yep.
And so, and when you look at things, and history is one of them. History should remember both people as the same, because they keep the thing going.
Yeah, they
You
tried.
know, it's like the Margaret River Classic. It's like the Margaret River board riders. They're still alive. They just tick over.
Yep.
And
Just have peaks and troughs.
peaks and troughs, and troughs, and they
Like
will.
a good swell.
It's a good swell. Yeah, it's going to happen. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
sooner or later, you're just going to go, "Whoa, this is a party."
Yeah.
You know.
Classic. So why did they throw it to you for the first lifetime membership? Did you just put in a lot of groundwork in the early days, getting it organising
Well,
comps and stuff like that? Or
I think possibly at the time, a lot of the older guys were starting to either have families and drop out.
Yep.
And I saw that the only way to do it was to go and pick up kids that wanted to go surfing, and these were local kids. You know, we're talking Jackos, Inglets, Thompsons. There's Hardys.
Yep.
There was a whole pot. Yeah, the Innes's. You know, all the Innes's.
Tom
boys,
Innes and all those guys. Yep.
Kids.
Yep.
So what happened was, I started a junior board riders, and that was going blazes, you know.
Yeah.
And we had a few of the old guys still coming along,
Yeah.
and they were just having fun, you know, looking after a pile of grommets, you
Froth and Groms. Yeah.
Frocking grommets. And,
Yeah.
you know, Sheridan's, you look at these surfers today,
Yeah.
and these are the guys that they've been running the club in the last
that's
few
right.
years.
And
you
they
know.
all
It's the
absolutely
Tomo,
ripped too, man.
Paul Tomo,
Yeah.
the Jackos.
Jackoviches,
The
yep.
Jackos are still in the stand-up paddle boards.
Yep.
You know, they're still competing. They're still...
Andrew
still
Sheridan's he's a
Sheridan-
hell
Andrew
surfer, and now he's
Sheridan,
got his
yeah.
own kids coming up
That's
through the
right.
ranks, and the
That's
Hardys,
right. Yep.
mate, just up north. Gene Hardy, we were talking about
Gene,
him on the last
yeah.
podcast with his daughter Willow, third
Yep.
generation. She
That's
was,
right.
mate. How's that for a 13-year-old
Oh, man.
surfer? She was ripping,
I've just been at the Bluff
Yeah.
and Nalu, and I can tell you that 17 people in the water, 13 were girls,
Really?
and I was paddling through a pack there the other day that was ferocious. And I tell you, you get Bronte, Macaulay, Willow, friggin' Olive,
Olive Hardy.
Mum, Crystal
Simpson.
Lizzie Nunn.
Yeah, right.
It's just like freaking hell, you know. They're all frothing on that second bubble there, and
Excellent.
You're just watching some insane surfing. you know?
It's good to see the girls
yeah,
out there.
right.
They got a good bit of a different vibe too, don't they?
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
have as much chest out.
No,
stuff.
they're hooting.
Figuratively, that is, not literally.
no.
Chests are probably out more than. But anyway,
but we won't go there.
Yeah, right. So they sort of because you were sort of pushing the juniors and just had a lot to do with it. They
I think so.
Yeah, that's how it went. And you've been
a life membership.
Yeah, and you've
which
been
was
involved.
really nice.
Yeah, it's a great honour and a worthy one.
I'm a life member of the longboard club as well.
The Indian Ocean Longboard Club,
Yeah,
is that one?
yeah.
Yeah, because you love riding the Mal still,
I
don't
love riding the Mals, and I love the club situation. You know, like I see people in the club situation that, you know, they're lawyers, they're friggin' accountants, they're all sorts of walks of life.
Yep.
They surf well, they don't surf well. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
It just is a time to see people.
Yeah,
and I
for sure.
do enjoy that side of competition.
Oh, definitely.
You know?
The gathering element, the social
The gathering element is.
And mate, at the end of the day, especially as you get older, you realise that you never know which day is going to be your last, or
it's so
even,
important.
you know, you might get an injury that just stops it for good, and you know, just to get out, get in the water, enjoy it for what it is, enjoy the sunshine. I feel the same way myself. You know, life is busy, this and that, mate. Just get out and bloody enjoy it. It's all good to have that super competitive element for the teenagers and the young 20s, and I love the world tour and all that. But at the end of the day, everyone surfs for fun. That's the bottom line. The competition's a bonus, and yeah, I can understand how you, mate. I love surfing Mals as well, and I find Mals you get less, less expectations upon yourself when you surf a Mal. You just sort of go out to have fun because you're like, well, I'm not going to go out and, you know, break into new ground and shock the world with my skill and talent. You're just going out there just to ride the waves and have fun. So I know you're pretty big on the Indian Ocean Longboard Club, and it's just a club that I've grown into, and and it's a thing of progression in life too. I got to 40 and I decided I wasn't enjoying surfing, and Mals were there, and one of the things. Why weren't you enjoying surfing at 40? Just because you started to lose physical ability, or
maybe
or
just mentally not being challenged as much. And it wasn't that I wasn't going out in bigger waves or anything like that. I just wasn't challenging myself enough. I went back and rode Mals and realised that that's where I started on the Mals. I hadn't actually learnt when I was young to master a Mal, but I thought that it would be worthwhile trying to do it.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Moving your feet and
there's a graceful dance that, I mean, anyone can ride a Mal, but it's hard to ride one gracefully, like doing that cross step and doing it all nice. But I mean, anyone can jump and shuffle, and it's easy. But to make it look nice is an art form, man. Hanging 10 is the original maneuver, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and it's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. So it was a rediscovery for me in surfing.
Yep.
And that's led me 20 years. And then my next rediscovery was going back to single fins and going, you know what, I don't want to ride a thruster anymore. And I do occasionally, but I just ride singles, and I just have rediscovered old surfboards and why they were made, and you know
what they were made for.
Yeah, what they were made for, and that's what I'm trying to do now. Is trying to.
Well, let's talk about that. You've got a shed in Kawarramup town site, which is about 10 k's back from the beach, in the industrial area there. I've been down there a few times to either have a beer or to drop off some of my old single fins, because I've got a bit of a single fin collection myself, and yeah, mate, you've just got the passion down there to fix them up. You've also got the knowledge you don't just fix them up, you bloody want to know the story of them, and you want to find out. And mate, your shed looks awesome. I think we'll post a photo of that when this episode drops, because it's pretty much a mini museum down there. You've got probably 100 boards hanging up. You've got old posters, you got old magazines, old videos, and you've got an old Falcon sitting in there. It's pretty much a surf museum, really, in a way, isn't it? As well as your workshop. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I suppose I'm really lucky in that my missus doesn't care how many boards I own.
Well, she doesn't. She probably doesn't come out.
know.
She doesn't come out to the shed, does she, mate?
Oh, well,
That's why you built the shed.
She looks and she goes, "Is that a new one?" And I go, "No, I've had that one for a while." And she goes, "Okay."
It's someone else's. They're just
It's
lending
cool.
it to me.
She did question me about shaping a new mouth for myself the other day, but
Yeah.
we've got past that.
Yes,
Um,
sweet.
Yeah, I've just started collecting boards that and I suppose my prime time of boards was probably between 75 and 80, and the
Yep.
single fins from that era are just classic. I love them, and
Yeah,
and
yeah. So do I.
they're totally rideable and totally relatable to today's wave.
And still relevant. Yeah.
Still totally relevant.
Yep.
I do like boards from earlier eras. You know, the stringless models are crazy because that's just what were they thinking and how did they think.
Yeah.
And so that's another part of the collection. And then I do appreciate modern boards. You know, I've got a couple from Yahoo's. One of my favourite boards, or I think my favourite boards, are 7.2 single fin from Mark Ogram down there.
Yeah, he's my local shaper. He's
Yeah.
an absolute master craftsman. So shout
Master
out to
craftsman.
Oggy. Yep, he
Yeah,
makes a
master
mean
craftsman.
single fin. He makes all my single fins.
So I see a good board and I
Yep.
like it, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
And you shape a bunch now yourself as well, just for fun. What are they? Sea Pirate? Captain.
Sea Captain.
Sea Captain.
Sea
And
Captain.
you got a logo on your single fin boards that I've always enjoyed. What was that logo there underneath that?
Oh, single fin sex.
Single fin sex when one
When one fin excites.
single fin sex when one fin excites. That sounds like a good board to me, Billy G. That's got true passion in it. I love it. Nah, it's a ripper.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, no, I've ridden some of your boards, and I think I've actually got one of your Mals as well out there.
Yeah.
And I know your son Gibbo, who's a mate of mine. He rides them a lot, and it's an unreal. It's an unreal shed you've got there, and the passion that you got for them. Not just because you like the boards, but I like how you want to look into the story of the board and find out about it. And more often than not, you generally know some of that story behind it. So, mate, if anyone in WA is out there and they have an old single fin that they want to get restored and maybe want to find out a bit about, I couldn't recommend Billy enough. He's been fixing up my boards. That's providing Billy wants to work. I'm not sure that he does. I did recommend one to you the other day. A guy called Brad. Did he ever call you up?
Probably.
He put something on there how he wanted to get it fixed up and find out something about it. And I had a
Yeah.
chat to him. He's an old mate. And I'm like, Billy's your man for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's fixed up. I'm looking at a couple on my floor right now that he's fixed up for me, and mate, I can't wait to give him a run at the this year's single fin theory comp in Yallingup, which you've been a stalwart at, coming up to try to ruffle the feathers of the Yallingup gang with your son Gibbo, and you always bring up a stable of boards for everyone to ride. You're all about just laying them out in the lawn and letting everyone
mate,
have a go.
You got to ride them.
Yep.
You got to ride them. You can't polish them up and leave them on your wall.
No.
It's not the done thing. And I lend my boards out for a few contests during the year.
You got the Margaret River
The
Australia
Margaret River
Day
Australia Day,
single fin
and
comp.
I love watching people ride my boards.
Yeah,
it's
sick.
it's almost as much enjoyment as riding them myself.
Yep.
Especially when you see, people like Taj take a friggin' your board out.
That's right. Taj Burrow, 2 years ago, won the
and he
single fin comp on your board.
And we were talking about Dapper before.
Yeah.
He's riding one of Dapper's
Was
boards.
it? Okay. There you
and
go. I remember that
he
year.
just-
Taj was ripping, obviously.
Just took it apart.
Yeah.
Took it apart. And you just go, and that board has never done anything like that in its life before.
40
And it's-
years that
and
board
it's
has never
40
drew
years
those
old,
lines before, has it? But it drew them
Yeah.
all the way to the victory. Yeah, that's epic. And, mate, your son, Gibbo, obviously, you're a Gibbo, he's a mate of mine. He has a daughter who surfs very well, Arabelle. How old's she now?
She's 18.
Yeah, and I saw just last week you taught her how to shape her first board. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that's been a buzz. So her birthday was not so long ago, and Dad bought her a blank for her birthday.
Oh, nice one, Dad. You taught us.
So, and I'm not sure how much enthusiasm there was for it at the first place, but look, she was keen.
Yep.
And
she surfs very well.
Oh, she's
like
great.
goes in state comps and stuff, doesn't she?
Yeah, no, she's up there. She's probably not going to be a world beater, but she surfs really well.
Yeah.
You know, like kills it. And so she's got in there, and we've thrown some foam, and she's got the planer out and used the saw, used the planer, glassed the board.
Yeah, sprayed it.
No, we did a swirl.
Oh yeah,
we did a resin swirl on the deck.
Yeah, cool.
And clear bottom.
What sort of board?
It is a 5/8
Oh yeah.
All right, and that's the other funny thing about it was that when she came out, she's classic teenager. She's like, Dad, I'm not going to shape anything that you want. And it's not what Granddad wants; it's what I want.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you want?
Yeah, she probably doesn't know.
Like, what do you want? What do you want? And she's going, I think a 20. And I'm going, yeah, okay. A little fish 20, you know.
Yeah.
So we've come up with a little 5/8 fish 20.
Yeah.
20 inches wide. 2.5.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, hard work for me, and old bloke.
Yeah.
Getting that much out of a blank, but
yeah.
It looks good.
Yep.
And it's going up to Nalu for its first wave. So
wow,
that's insane.
Yeah, cool. Well, mate, pretty epic experience being able to pass that skill on, and obviously you shape that up in your little quasi museum shed surfboard fixing operation you got there. So yeah, pretty cool experience to be able to do that with your granddaughter. You know, shape and glass a board together, and then have her ride it. So yeah, not many granddads get to do that with their granddaughters, I'm tipping.
Oh, look, it is special. I don't think there's too many grandfathers that would get an 18-year-old to sit with them for 3 or 4 hours and and listen to you. You know, so
yeah, awesome.
I was, and you know, her hand skills were very good. I was surprised how good her hand skills were when she cut with a saw. It was reasonably straight. When she used the planer, it rolled beautifully in her hand. I'm a left-hander, and I get shit flying all over me because all tools are made for right-handed people.
Yeah, right.
But she is. She just holds the planer really, really well. So
awesome.
I was impressed.
Oh, that sounds cool. All right, mate. Well, let's just we've been going a while, but let's just jump back in time a little bit before we wrap it up. Mate, your son Gibbo tipped me off that you were possibly involved in some early Jack McCoy movies, like maybe Bunyip Dreaming, Green Iguana, any of them? Did you help out with any of those runs up north or down south or anything?
Only in cooking.
Only in cooking.
Only in cooking.
So you were
cooking and driving cars.
Oh, so you did go on some of those runs, did you? In some of those movies?
Yeah. I was with Jack a few times. And Jack was around here for a while.
Yep, Jack McCoy, the filmmaker. Yep.
Yeah.
And so any funny moments there any dirt that may or may not have happened on any of those guys? Hockey was always a character.
Hockey's a character.
Yeah.
But I missed out on that because I did another trip. I went, Dean had doubled up and I took another car somewhere else. So
Jack McCoy and Hockey were part of West Coast Surf Safaris, were they?
Yeah, right, okay. Up as well.
Yeah, right,
so,
okay.
Hockey did the trip with him.
Yep.
I didn't I did another trip at the same time, different place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right. So some of those iconic Jack McCoy movies, you were on the fringe, but
close. And I know Jack well.
Yep.
Good guy, and he was around here for a while.
No funny hockey stories that you were personally involved in?
Nah. Dean tipped his friggin' inflatable over at one of the Masters one year.
At the Margaret River Masters?
Yeah. I can't, and I don't know. I think Occy was involved somewhere in there. I'm not. No, I couldn't.
Nothing off the bat. Yeah, that's cool. All right, mate. Well, what about South Oz? You did a bit of surfing down there.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of surfing down there.
Yep.
I went down early or mid 70s.
Yep.
Cactus was pretty raw then.
Yeah. Yep. It was pretty popular in a sense, wasn't it?
The Weed Six had been there, and I mean, Rob Keneally and a few of the boys from the south here are still frequent Cactus and that.
Yeah, it's a great sport.
More than they do going north,
Yeah,
They'll go to Cactus rather than they go to the Bluff,
Yeah, right.
This year's been a bit of a
tricky
stomp.
one. Yeah.
But most of the boys, there's a lot of the boys down to do that south run.
And there was some pretty wild guys living in the Cactus surrounds back in those days. I'm tipping.
Crazy.
Tell us a bit about them.
Well, I grew up with the Hawley brothers, Phil and Shane Hawley. They both passed away. Shane's passed away in the last year. Phil passed away a number of years ago. He lived at Cactus for quite a while.
Which is tough going. If people don't know, Cactus is
out
in the middle of nowhere, 8 hours or something, 10 hours from Adelaide, in the desert, just in the Nullarbor Plain.
Yep.
It's sharky, it's desert, it's just a wild
I'll
place,
tell you
isn't
how
it?
sharky. Phil's nickname was Sharkbait.
Was it? It doesn't sound,
and
it's not a name I'd
got attacked at Castles one day.
Outside Castles there?
Outside Castles.
Yep.
And he was rushed into Sejuna.
Yep.
And he got about 150 stitches down one leg.
Wow.
And came back and built a house, had a couple of kids.
Yep.
And then rode himself off on the way back from Penong Pump one night, and fucking that was the end of Phil.
Really? In a car?
In a car.
Wow.
So,
they always say that
but,
you're more likely to have a car accident than being attacked by a
cat
shark.
of nine lives. Cat of nine lives.
Sounds like he had both, the poor bugger.
Man.
Yeah, right.
But
have you ever been involved with any shark attacks? Or?
No.
No, that's good.
But I've seen them. I've seen them close enough. And Cactus is one of the places that attracts some friggin' big fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've surfed there a couple of times, and
yeah,
it's a scary feeling, that whole South Oz, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though it's sort of feels like that now here, but as well.
I mean, they're there, and you got to just be a little bit aware and
cross your fingers.
Cross your fingers, and just be aware. Just try and feel the ocean. Just
look for the birds and
do the
bait balls and
It's an Omni thing, isn't it? It's friggin', you know when it's right and it's wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. So mate, you told us about one of your mates there, Sharkbait. Tell me more about some of the other characters out there back in the day, as Cactus in the 70s was extremely isolated, and you could stay hidden out there for decades if you wanted to from anyone.
Yeah. I know. Everybody wanted to chase Nirvana or disappear from the law. And one of the guys, I suppose, he wasn't from Cactus or over there east or anything, but he came with me. He decided at the last moment that he wanted to come over east with me.
So you're going on a Cactus run? And
yeah, I'm going on a Cactus. Oh, well, I'm going around Australia. So, and
this may or may not have happened, Billy.
Oh yeah, may not have happened.
Could be a fabrication.
He was
enjoyment.
He was running around Perth, doing all sorts of things that he probably shouldn't have been doing, and getting into all sorts of trouble. And at the time, he was in a fair bit of trouble. And he said to me about a week before I left, "Hey Billy, you got a spare spot?" And I was taking, it was me and my missus, and he says, "Yeah, I got to go." So I've decided.
So there's some bad guys after him. The police is after him.
I don't know whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, but anyway, I've said, "Yeah, Steve. There's a spot there, mate. Jump in the car."
Yeah.
And so, and we've got Cactus, and he's just calmed right down. And the good part about it, he just had, he was stocked. So he was totally stocked.
Yeah, good.
So
as you do when you're on the run.
Yeah, he was on the run, but he was stocked.
Yeah.
So we had a damn good time at Cactus. It was great.
Did he bring his own board?
Yeah, he brought his own board. He couldn't surf much. He was not a great surfer, but
He was there more for the disappearing act than anything.
It was just he was a good mate at the time,
mate,
and you just you want to help out where you can. So I did.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was disappearing from the law, and I realised that a lot of people at Cactus were either there because they didn't want do anything to do with society, or they were disappearing from the law. It was just one of those places. So.
Mate, it still feels like that now. I reckon you could still disappear out there now, but man, in the 70s, people wouldn't find you for 10, 20 years out there.
That's right.
If not the rest of your life. So
that's right.
Whilst having perfect waves at the same time. Happy days.
That's it.
That's classic, mate.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So you had some good runs back there. And did you do much international travel or surf-wise?
No, I've done Indonesia a few times, a couple of times.
In the earlier days?
In the early days.
Yeah.
Surfed Uluwatu too before there was anything on the hillside there. Just a couple of Losmans. And, good surf around there. Nusa Dua and around that side.
So just Bali predominantly?
Just Bali.
You didn't need to travel back then, I guess, did you? It was all there.
Just plenty waves on Bali, and there wasn't late 70s. It was pretty uncrowded.
And you were on the hippie trail there a bit, were you, mate?
Yeah, pretty hippie trail.
Yep.
Yeah, up. You could disappear to the mountains for a few mushies or something.
Try to reach enlightenment.
Yeah.
Did you find it?
No.
Looks like you have. You look pretty happy.
I'm enlightened every day.
Classic. So yeah, good times, and then you had a family, obviously late 70s, 78s, because that's the same year.
78. Yeah.
I'm born, and that's how I became mates with your son. And did that sort of put a hamper on those sort of Indonesian travels? Did it or?
No, I didn't
Not really.
I didn't go back to the 90s.
Yep.
And it didn't attract me. It
didn't blow your mind like most people went to
Indonesia's
Indo in those years and just was like, that's it. They became Indo warriors.
I'm not sure
why
whether it's the culture or the and I'm not. It's just not one of my favourite places to travel in the world. I've been in New Zealand. I've been to Europe. I've been up through England and Scotland and through there. I've been through Spain and Italy.
Surfing or
some places. I've surfed in Spain, Zuruz and around Mandaka and around there.
But you just weren't overly attracted to Indonesia despite the perfection of the
never
waves.
Attracted me. And look, to be real, I reckon we've got what Indonesia's got in the northwest here.
Yeah.
It maybe not the lush tropical situation with a hotel sitting on the corner.
Yeah.
But the situation where you've got one of the best waves in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Sitting there in front of you.
Yep.
Just reeling. It can't be faulted. And then, I mean, there's other places that are exactly like that. In the world.
Yes.
But that one suits
There's
me.
not many better.
There's not one.
I've always said that that up there, there's waves around the world that are as good, but waves just don't get any better than a couple of those ones up. They're just that good.
Yeah.
That there's millions of waves around the world. Maybe not millions, but there's a lot that are just as good, but they're not better. I mean, that's when you get five barrels on a wave, that's pretty well as good as it gets, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. And then, when you're saying that too, in that it's another attraction of what's out there is that no two waves are exactly the same.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're going to get another left-hander that's almost like that, but not quite like that. That's not going to have the bubble in the same section. It's going to have It's going to have something different about it. You've just surfed Yardie.
Yeah.
It's like this hook in the wave. And
it's the ripper. Yeah.
So you're just surfing into that hook all the time, and it took me back when you said that. It just took me back 20 years or 30 years the last time I surfed Yardie.
Yeah.
And I kept on going, wow, this thing is unreal to go up to, it's
Yeah.
surfing into a hook.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty.
But it's not dissimilar from Nalu in the way it reels off. you know.
Yep.
But
Same, but different.
but different, totally
Which is
different.
what it's all about, isn't
yeah.
it? Unreal. All right, mate. Well, that's pretty good. Well, mate, I reckon we're probably getting to the end of the run here. So,
Yeah.
well, just while we're finishing out, what are some of your favourite 3 or 4 surfers over the expanse of your time that really sort of ring your bell in your memory banks as to, for different reasons, including anyone right up to this day and age, going back to whenever? Throw a couple of names out and why.
Well, okay. I was lucky enough to see the best surfers in the world in my time, which are probably I would rate them being Ian Cairns, Wayne Lynch, and Michael Peterson. And I saw them in their own waves, in their own space, and they all incredible. And at the time, I thought each one of them was the best surfer in the world. And as you watch over the years, you see a lot of surfers that are maybe not as dynamic, but they've left such an impression in your brain.
Yep.
And I think way back at people like Glenn Lance, who was around about the same time as Cairnsy.
Yep.
And Glenn had the cleanest tube stance and tube riding ability that you could ever imagine. I can't think of another person that turned as well in the tube as what he did in the early 70s.
And where was he from?
He was from Capel.
Yeah, right, from Capel.
Capel.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
still probably sailing around in a boat somewhere around the place. But he's in the same league as Lynchy,
Yep.
And then when you go to other places in Victoria, there's probably a couple of other surfers in Victoria that impress me, and I can't think of them at the moment. But it's like there's the best surfer out there.
Yep.
Like you're looking at Cairnsy, and then there's this one that's off the side that's just like not as dynamic.
Yep.
But
He's got some other sort of mojo going on that's connected to the wave and the ocean and the style.
So you watch people and you enjoy their style, So I suppose over time, and the modern one that I see is I've watched a fair bit of him growing up is Jack Robinson.
Yep.
And if he can keep his shit together, he'll be a world beater.
For sure he will. Yeah. Bloody oath.
So it's just up to him whether he's there or not.
I mean, it's always hard to pick 3 surfers when you're my age, let alone going back to all those eras, that you've got as well.
Yeah.
So
there's some in the middle there.
You can't
dynamic,
just go black and white. Yeah, these 3. That's fair enough.
Like,
but it's good to see an insight into.
You appreciate the way that Mick McAuliffe rode tubes. He had a stomp. You go Sean Thompson. Okay, Sean Thompson's on the world tour.
Yep.
And used his front foot like unbelievably when tube riding.
To weave through the tube.
Mick McAuliffe on our own coast, exactly the same thing.
Yep.
He had a front foot that was buried a foot from the nose of the board, quite a wide stance, and steering through the tube.
Is that why he was nicknamed Stomper?
No.
No? Why is he nicknamed Stomper?
I think it's a long lost... I think he snapped in a public cubicle and stomped it down the hole.
So he took a dump. This may or may not have happened.
Yes, may or may not have happened.
Yeah.
That's the story that I've been told.
So he took a crap
but I always thought
in a urinal, and it wouldn't go down because a urinal is obviously for pissing in, and he stomped it in, did he?
He stomped it in.
Wow, that's fantastic. I've known him a long time. Fantastic surfer. Always assumed it was from his stomping big drops and barrels, but there you go.
Well, it could be too.
Could be.
Yeah. But same deal. So there's those comparisons between the best surfers in the world and ones locally.
Yeah, that's right.
And Taco,
Yeah.
You know, I've seen him do the cutbacks out here that are so sweet.
Yeah.
Ant-Man, friggin' hell,
legend.
gee,
Just the biggest
legend
charger ever.
stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you start with the best surfer and the.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's a hard call for me. I wouldn't like to call it.
No. Well, that's good. You've given an answer anyway, and that's covered a few spectrums. So that's good. So just finally, any sort of extremely memorable sessions that really jump out at you over the years? Is there any like one or two sessions that have just burnt themselves into your brain that you scored somewhere, and where were they?
Oh, I think the best ones I've scored are probably at Nalu, you know, and they burn into your brain because they're just a reoccurring dream, and
Living the dream.
living the dream. Yeah.
Yeah. So just probably just all blend into one, and the amount of trips you've done up there.
The blends. There's a few blenders, but you know, I do travel up there each year, and like I say, I'm pushing 65 now. So
Yep.
And I do think to myself, how long can I keep on going, getting one of these things, you know? And I do plan each year to at least get one, you know, where you can come out of a barrel and say, yeah, I've been there and come out, you know, and it doesn't touch me, you know. It's not like a cover-up shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, I want a clean one.
One
you know?
clean, proper, deep one.
So it's still happening.
Yep.
And the dream remains in my brain for another year.
Yeah, classic.
Until I go up there again, and with a little bit of luck, in between time, you score a wave in between, and it's a bonus.
Yeah, unreal. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Billy. I'm sure there's plenty more stories that we got out of the bank, but we got a couple out of you, mate. It's been. I'm stoked you came on, and to all those listeners out there, I'm 42 myself, and just for the record, my first ever surf down south was at the hands of Billy Gibson. I met his son at school in Perth, and came down for the school holidays, and Billy picked us up and took us down, and I was riding a bodyboard and took us to Gracetown, and I remember, mate, after coming from Perth, they were the biggest waves I'd ever seen in my life, and it was just this little kiddies break called Huzzers, and I was looking at it just shitting myself going, oh, mate, they're the biggest swells I've ever seen. And I remember you driving us out there and giving us strict instructions. You grommets, make sure you stay here at Huzzers. I'm going over there to surf South Point, and you're not allowed to come over there. And I just remember looking at South Point, this big left-hander peeling down this rocky headland, and I just was shitting myself. And I thought, there's no way. I don't want anything to do with that bloody point break over there. And I was so scared that I was going to get sucked off the little kiddies break I was on and sucked out into that South Point wave. And, mate, I was terrified. It was fantastic. Obviously, I liked it because I kept coming back. So thanks for taking me for my first ever surf down south, Billy, and putting up with us little frothing grommets staying in your house. And I'm sure you've done it for lots of people. But, mate, surf on. You're still surfing all these years. You still got the passion. You're fixing boards. You're out there surfing. Your son's surfing. Your granddaughter's surfing. You're in the Indian Ocean Longboard Club. You come up to the Yelling Up Single Fin comp. We got the Margaret River Classic going. You're still a massive part of the WA surf culture, and we all thank you for that. Mate, I look forward to hanging out with you, surfing, drinking a beer, smoking a fatty, hanging out in the grass, and just living it up. Anything you'd like to leave us with? Any parting words of wisdom? How do you keep surfing till you're 65, Billy?
Oh, God. Jeez. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just
Don't stop.
Don't stop.
Don't stop.
Gets too hard to get back into it.
Yeah. No, don't stop. 2 or 3 times a week at least.
Yep, sweet.
And, more if you can.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks heaps for coming in, Billy Gibson. You've been listening to Barreled Surf Podcast, and that'll do for now. Hope you're all well, stay well, and keep surfing. All right, over and out. You.
G'day everyone, thanks for listening. Check out some of our sponsors, they're all bloody awesome. Forester Estate Wines, top quality local wines. Cheeky Monkey Beer, the best damn beer in the southwest. Shark Eyes Wetsuits, absolute gold. Athletic Greens, take control of your health. And Down South Physio, look after your body, stay in the water. Thanks for listening everyone. You.